Hey, Shalom Akim Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Once again, I want to say, call hello, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth. And as always, I'm going to give much peace, love, and salutation to the elect, Akim, the elect of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, that's pushing this word with all truth and sincerity. All right, I'm the brother Tazamah from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back today with another lesson. And Lord willing, this lesson will be edifying. And I want to go into some prophecy in regards to the coming energy crisis. All right, the energy crisis that really Europe is already currently undergoing right now. But as these winter times come forth and it gets colder, all right, it's going to get a lot more. It's going to get a lot more strenuous. It's going to get a lot more tight. All right, and one thing that one scripture that I think about is what Yahweh Shai said. He said, "Pray that your flight be not in the winter." All right, let me grab that real quick. All right, this is Matthew chapter 24, verse 20. All right, now when you go up. We'll start at verse 19. It says, "A woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days." Now, this is mainly talking about the time of 70 AD, whenever the Romans besieged Jerusalem and sacked the temple, and hundreds of thousands and almost millions of Israelites got put to death as well as got displaced. All right, and at that time, Jerusalem, our people, all right, Israel, we were besieged. So at that time during 70 AD, all right, pretty much the food was cut off. All right, whenever a nation got besieged, they would pretty much stop anything from coming in, and they would stop anything from going out, which would be resources, food, water. All right, and they would pretty much starve the nation out from the inside. And you had cannibalism that took place, and that's coming back in a very big way. All right. Now, like I said, this is mainly happening, or this prophecy that Yahweh Shai stated here is mainly speaking about 70 AD. All right, but okay, you are going to have women who are going to be with child in that day. It's going to be hell for them. Now, of course, the women who the Lord has redeemed and has set forth to be saved, those women are going to be good. All right, those who have husbands, and that believe that the Lord is going to take care of those women. But the majority of these women out here, you can forget about them. All right. This is Matthew 24, verse 20. All right. It says, "But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day." All right. And during the times of the winter seasons, all right, the winter season, I rather say, that's a time where a lot of death can come in. It's colder outside. You see, crops don't really grow as much during those times. You see, that's why whenever you would hear about particular stories, they would say, 3 winters ago or 4 winters ago, because at that time, a lot of death happens, man. You see, when it's cold outside, man, it's easier. It's easier to survive, when it's a little bit hotter outside, a little bit warmer, because things are a lot more alive in a sense. But when the wintertime comes, a lot of things are more dead. You see? So Yahweh Shah said, "But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to let me read this again. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor even shall be." And that's nor ever shall be. And that's going to be the time of Jacob's trouble. All right, you read about that in Jeremiah, the 30th chapter, the 7th verse, as well as Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. It's going to be a time that the world has never ever witnessed before, man. Okay, verse 22, and it says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." You see, and the times are shortening. Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai is making short the time. as it also says in the Apocrypha in Second Ezra, or excuse me, the book of Ecclesiasticus. You see? So when you look at this article, this is from Summit.news. All right, it says dark days ahead for Europe as lack of Russian oil could spark worst energy crisis in decades. Now, you just had that whole scenario that took place out there in the Baltic Sea in regarding to the Nord Stream 1 and the Nord Stream 2 pipelines leaking. I'll just use that for lack of better words, quote unquote leaking. All right, and we already know that it was a sabotage that took place. All right, and we understand and know who that sabotage came from. All right, but that's going to affect Europe. That's going to affect Germany. It's going to affect these different nations that are in league with the beast, are the 10 horns. You see, and ultimately, what this is going to cause is going to cause more friction between the beast, all right, and the whore. The whore being America and the beast being these different NATO and EU nations. Okay? Because they have different deals, energy deals with Russia. And why would Russia destroy their own source of income? Why would they destroy a source that provides them income and 40% of their gross domestic product or their gross national product comes by way of foreign currencies? You see, it doesn't make any sense. And why would Europe be a part of it when, you know what I'm saying, they need these natural resources from Russia? So that just leaves out one more culprit, and we know who that culprit is. Okay, so it says a European ban on most crude imports from Russia will come into effect in December. So let's read that top part again. Let's read this top first sentence one more time. All right. It says a European ban on most crude imports from Russia will come into effect in December. Now you got to ask yourself, who is the one who is orchestrating and really making these deals come to pass? It's the whore that rides upon the beast. That's why when you read in the prophecies, all right, let me actually get it in the blue letter. And I'm driving, so just, bear with me, Baba Gashai, as I'm kind of focusing on the road too. All right, this is the book of Daniel, chapter 7. Let's start at verse 19. All right, it says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which that fourth beast is talking about Rome. All right, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, which the teeth represents its military might. Okay, it says, and his nails of brass. It says, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet, because the Roman Empire pretty much took over the whole known world. After the Greeks ruled, you had the Romans who ruled, and they expanded their empire more vast than the Greek Empire. They dominated more of the known world of the Mediterranean at that time, and even parts past the Mediterranean, really. It says, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, which those 10 horns were the 10 common markets, or the 10 vassal states, all right, that were pretty much in league with the beast, and that was in league with Rome, right? And of the other which came up, which that other horn which came up is talking about America. You can read that in Revelation the 17th chapter. Okay, as well as Revelation the 13th chapter. All right, it says that little horn, the 8 is of the 7. Okay, it says, and of the 10 horns which were that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, and before the whom 3 fell, is talking about the French, the Spanish, and the British. Okay, it says, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, which we clearly see that America is the nation that speaks great things, and it begins with its blasphemies against Yahweh Ba'Shem Shah by way of its philosophies and its laws that are passed, right? Whose look was more stout than his fellows. You see, America has a more stout, or a more boastingly arrogant, or a more proud look than its counterparts. You see, Whatever America says goes when it comes to these different deals that these different nations make. Okay? So when you have European nations who do receive imports from Russia and various other countries, and there's a sanction on them, who's the one that really controls that sanction? It's America. And these different nations pretty much are in league with the sanctions that are made, and they really, deep down inside they're like, man, fuck, you know what I'm saying? But they don't buck up against the horde. But now you're having particular nations begin to buck up because of prophecy. Okay, it says they that were confederate with thee have laid a snare for thee, for lack of better words, when you read that in the book of Obadiah. Okay, now going back to the article, it says for EU leaders, the next task at hand has been finding new sources of crude oil ahead of what could be a very dark and cold winter. Okay? And this is going to cause a lot of people, because it's not just necessarily, you got to ask yourself, what comes with imports? What comes with imports of oil? It comes with the moving of goods and services. It comes with actually getting gas. It comes with heating your homes. You see? It comes with putting food on the shelves. Particular things that you need. Covers. Fuel. All these different things are needed. That's why the scripture says, when you read it in Luke, what is it? Luke, I want to say it's Luke 21. Let me find it real quick. Luke chapter 21, verse 25. It says, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. All right, which we clearly have been seeing, more signs in the heavens, as the sun and the moon are instruments that Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua has created for times and for signs. Right? It says, and upon the earth, distress of nations. Let's get this word distress. This is what Yahweh Shah said. He says, so before he comes, there's going to be a lot of distress within the nations, man. That word distress is sunoche, if I'm saying that correctly. All right? And that word sunoche, straits, metaphorically, straits, and that's straits, Straits, is a position of difficulty. Okay? It's a narrow path or a position that's going to be tight. And we're going to see very, very more people, all right, here in Babylon too, because it's going to be worse over here. But these different beast nations or beast, countries that are in league with America, we're going to see people in very, very tight situations where the love of many is going to begin to wax cold. It's going to begin to wax colder and colder. Okay, it says straits, distress, anguish. What does anguish mean? What's the definition of anguish? Okay, anguish. Agony. You see, severe mental or physical pain or suffering. So it's not necessarily going to be a physical pain, but it's going to be a mental pain that these people are going to have, man. Not knowing where your next meal is going to be. You see? Not knowing if there's going to be trucks coming through that's going to be able to have resources. Not knowing if you're going to be able to put gas in your car. Not knowing if you're going to be able to heat your home. That's why the scripture says that wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of our time and strength and salvation, and the fear of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua is his treasure. Okay, because those that are serving Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua with truth and sincerity, the Lord is going to take care of his men. Even in these economic downturns, the Lord is going to make sure that his men are taken care of. The believers and their families, man. The Lord is going to take care of us. Lord willing, we of that number. Okay? So that's what that word distress means. It says the distress of nations, it says with perplexity. And this word of perplexity is aporia, which means the state of one who is in perplexity, which that word to be perplexed means to be confused, right? But when you get the root word, it says apareo, which means to what? To be without resources. See? To be without resources, food, water, shelter, heat, electricity, gas. You see? Where now it's going to get to the point. So it's going to get to the point to whereas with these lack of resources, the natural commonality between man and woman is going to go back to that natural order, man. Right? It says to be without resources, to be in straits, which we read the definition of that word straits already. It says to be in straits, to be left wanting, or for lack of better words, to be left lacking. You see, to be lacking something, and that means to what? To be lacking resources. To be embarrassed. What would make you embarrassed? The reason as to why these people are going to be embarrassed is because these prophecies are going to come to pass, and all the scoffing that they've been doing, all the game playing, all the naysaying. You see, the effect of every vision is going to be at hand at that point, and people are going to be faced with reality. Okay, the reality of what it is, people are going to be faced with it. To be embarrassed, to be in doubt. You see? Hey, that's why Yahweh Shai said in Luke 12, he said, when he cometh, shall he find, Luke 18, when the Lord returns, shall he find faith on the earth? Because a lot of people are going to be offended and doubt is going to be pushed on them. You already have Jake pushing doubt. Particular Israelite camps pushing doubt when it comes to the name of the Lord. You see Jacob's trouble. You already got individuals pushing doubt. You see? It says not to know which way to turn. You see? They're not going to know which way to turn because what? Wisdom and knowledge is not going to be the stability of their time and strength and salvation. They're not going to know which direction to go. They're going to be groping at noonday. And this is just the beginning of sorrows, man. It's just going to get worse. We've been in the beginning of sorrows, but when you in the beginnings of sorrows, these are just the beginnings of birth pains that are just going to increase to become more and more and more worse. To be at loss with oneself. And when you're at loss at oneself, when you're at loss for oneself, hey, that's why there's a saying that says, when people lose it, how's the saying go? When people lose everything, they lose it. I think it's something of that nature. It says when people lose it, they lose it. Quote. How's the saying go? Yep, Gerald Celente said it. Right? Gerald Celente. It says, when people have nothing left to lose and they've lost everything, they lose it. You see that? When people have nothing left to lose, when you've already lost everything and they've lost everything, they lose it. The people are going to lose their goddamn minds, man. You're going to have crime. You're going to have crime on an all-time high. It's going to be pretty much like the Purge times 7. See? You're going to have women getting raped and ravished at an all-time high. Abductions, child abductions at an all-time high. Theft at an all-time high. Murder at an all-time high. All these things, America is really going to be the wild, wild west, as well as these different nations that are in league with this place. Because when America falls, all these different nations are going to fall too. Everything is going to be a domino effect. Okay? It says the move by the EU countries to endlessly sanction Russia for President Vladimir Putin's war with Ukraine by halting crude oil imports later this year is an attempt to make the Kremlin pay for the invasion. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen recently said. But here it is. It's to make Russia pay so that they can't move their imports, even though Russia is able to trade with other different BRICS nations. But here it is, Europe, very strategic parts of Europe, all right, receive oil from Russia. So here it is, they receive crude oil imports from Russia, but really, like I said, like we read earlier, the beast the whore controlling the beast that rides upon the beast and controls it is the one calling the shots. America. You see, that's why the scripture says in Revelation, Revelation the 17th chapter, it says that they will be in league pretty much with this whore for a time. Yep. Let's see. Revelation 17:12. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet. And it's more than 10 now. It's roughly like 28. You see? It says, which have received no king which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So they would reign with the beast for a particular period of time. You see, they would reign with the beast for a particular period of time until what? Until the Lord puts it in their mind to fulfill his will. And the ultimate will is going to be for their minds to turn to destroy this place, man, which we're going to get here in a little bit. Okay. It says, though it's only backfired, though it's only backfired as the Kremlin's war chest has swelled by tens of billions of dollars as energy prices hyperinflate and new buyers are found in Asia. Let's read that again. It says, though it's only backfired, so for them to set sanctions upon Russia really backfired against them, as the Kremlin's war chest has swelled by tens of billions of dollars as energy prices hyperinflate and new buyers are found in Asia. So the Kremlin and Russia is really not worried about Europe not buying their oil because they have new buyers who are still able to sell their oil too. Right? Now, what does it mean? What does hyperinflate mean? And Elder Apostle Tahar has been going in on doing lessons on this, inflation for some years now. All right, but what does this word hyperinflate mean? Because you have inflation, right? And then you have something called hyperinflation. All right, so let's look it up here on the definition, right? Hyperinflate. It says to subject to hyperinflation. Now, what is hyperinflation? It says extreme or excessive inflation. So hyperinflation is an extreme form of inflation, right? Now, what is inflation? What's inflation mean? Economics, right? It says a persistent, substantial rise. It's a persistent and substantial rise in the general level of prices related to an increase in the volume of money and resulting in the loss of the value of currency. So let's read this slowly. A persistent, substantial rise or increase, right, in the general level of prices. So prices persistently are steadily rising, and we're seeing prices consistently and persistently rising here in America and out there in Europe. You're seeing gas increase. Now, it did drop a little bit. People are like, oh, gas is back to $3.30 a gallon. I remember when it was $4. It's going to continue to increase. Think about it. Gas has always just increased. I remember when gas used to be $1.98. Hell, I remember when gas was just breaking $1. And I'm a young man, But I remember as a child, with my father seeing gas barely be $1, like 98 cents a gallon or $1.01 a gallon. Now look at the new normal is a little over $3, right? So inflation is a persistent, substantial rise in the general level of prices, food, oil, right? Resources in general. You got the price. You got the increase of real estate and rent. The rent market, the housing market, rents increasing. Everything is increasing. Related to an increase in the volume of money. So when you got an increase of dollar bills being flowed back to a country, when it's an increase of it, they have to raise the prices of it because the value of the dollar has dropped and you have too many dollars in one area. So they got to jack the prices up to move those dollars. You see, that's what inflation is. So hyperinflation is an excessive form. And it's an excessive rise in the level of prices because the value of the currency is decreasing, which we're really in an economic bubble. We're really in a bubble right now that's getting ready to pop. You see, and when that bubble pops, that's going to be when the MOTB is fully established as a new, quote unquote, a new way or a new currency, a new way of money being moved in goods and services. That's why the scripture says that no man may buy or sell, which is a form of currency, save or except he that hath the MARK. the charagma, the CHIP, which that's what this is leading to. All roads are leading to the CHIP. Okay. It says EU leaders have stepped up efforts to transition from Russian energy to other energy-rich countries. And another energy-rich country that has natural gas is another place is Venezuela, which there was sanctions on Venezuela. So eventually here, the beast and the whore are going to be out of, they're going to be out of allies in a sense. Now, like I said earlier, according to the prophecy, these 10 horns are going to hate the whore. They're going to eventually turn on America. You see? It says EU leaders have stepped up efforts in transition from Russian energy to other rich energy countries, though they might find it challenging to increase energy imports due to limited spare capacity worldwide. And why would you got to ask yourself, why would it be a limited spare capacity worldwide, which there's really not an energy shortage. There really isn't a shortage of oil in the world. The only thing is that Esau fracks the planet Earth. All right, he fracks it and he drills it, and he's constantly drilling, sucking the resources out. You see, that's why the Lord is going to put these devils. He's going to put these devils down and destroy them. That's why when you read in Revelation 18, it says that matter of fact, let me grab it real quick. Destroy them which destroys the earth. What scripture is that? Man, destroy them, earth. Now then, them. I'm sorry, it was Revelation 11 and 18. I say Revelation 18 by mistake. So this is Revelation 11 verse 18. It says, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come. And some of those angry nations are going to be who? Those EU nations. It says, and thy wrath is come, which those wrath are going to be by way of the chariots, fire from the chariots, Yahweh Shah's return, of course, and then those missiles. It says, in the time of the dead, that they should be judged. And this goes into the spiritually dead, as well as those who have died, who the Lord is going to raise up for judgment. It says, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, which were patiently awaiting for that reward. Lord willing, we're of that number. Okay, that's why the scripture says here is the faith and the patience of the saints, right? It says, and to the saints, which are Israelites, vocab alone, and any other cohort that want to try to say that the saints are anybody, right? Psalm 148 tells you who the saints are. It says, and them that fear thy name, which proves that the prophets and the saints would know the name of the Lord, IUIC, you niggas, right? It says small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. So Esau, all right, has been ruling the earth and completely destroying the earth, man. That's why the scripture says that the earth languishes from the inhabitants thereof, man, in Isaiah 24. So the Lord is going to take these devils out of power. So as we read here, it says though they might find it challenging, to increase energy imports due to limited spare capacity worldwide, right? It says Monica Malik, the chief economist at Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank, told the audience at an energy security panel hosted by the Institute of International Finance in Washington, D.C. on Monday that the Gulf states, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, right, which Saudi Arabia and America are pretty much allies with it, and that's where you get OPEC from. All right, it was a deal that was made pretty much America, for lack of better words. You can look it up on your own, but America was like, look, we'll give you military support and give you weapons if you sell your oil, all right, in U.S. dollars, which Saudi Arabia is a leading oil producer in the world. Okay, won't be able to increase production to replace Russian oil in Europe. So, with these sanctions going on geopolitically, and energy not moving to Europe due to Russian sanctions, these other oil-rich countries aren't going to increase oil production to pick up the lack of oil coming into these different nations, these different European nations. You see that? It says, after all, the world is moving into a much tighter oil market for the remainder of the year after OPEC plus cuts. So OPEC, all right, is cutting their oil production. Okay? This could unintentionally spur a super cycle in pricing as Brent crude inches close to $100 a barrel. $100 a barrel. Now, you can ask yourself, how do you compare oil barrels to gas? How to compare oil barrels to gas prices? Let's just say that. I want to find like a... No, that's not a good one. Let's say, let's see. I want to find a good one. It's all good. I was gonna try to do the math to figure out how, pretty much, if a barrel of oil is $100 a barrel, how would that what would that add up to in gas prices today, for lack of better words? But it's all good. It says, so where will Europe source crude this winter if spare capacity worldwide is limited, right? Head of European oil for Morgan Stanley, Martin Ratz, wrote in a recent note, the oil market is where it is because this question is so hard to answer. If we knew, we could all breathe a little easier. You see? So as oil and resources are scarce, that's going to put a strain on the economy. You see, things are going to increase. Prices are going to increase worldwide, not just in Europe, but worldwide. Prices are going to increase, right? Without spare capacity, EU leaders will find it challenging to source crude oil around the world because production cannot be quickly ramped up. They're cutting oil production. Helma Croft, managing director of RBC Capital Markets LLC, warned, I think we are facing the worst energy crisis in decades. And the reason why it's the worst energy crisis in decades is because Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, the Lord is putting the spirit upon these elites to pull the plug on this system. You see, that's why you've been seeing more and more information about pretty much green energy, going green here, green this, green that, green. Having a CO2. I'll just say that. I don't want them to flag my video, right? It says Croft fears a populist backlash in Europe. Croft fears a populist backlash in Europe as sanctions against Russia has sparked a cost of living crisis. What's this going to cause? This is going to cause uproars of the people. That's what that's going to cause. It's going to cause civil unrest because people are going to be fed up. People are already fed up. Okay? This is 2 Ezra 15, and I'm just going in the spirit, man. I ain't, I'm just going based upon what the Lord gives me. So, 2 Ezra 15 and 14, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. All right, and there's going to be in this woe to the world, there's going to be an hour of temptation that's going to come upon the whole world in the oikonomene sense. Okay, which is going to be that sihib. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Why are they going to have swords in their hands? Why are they going to have swords in their hand? Because we're going to continue to read down, and it's going to explain why they're going to have swords in their hand, which is a gun, weapons, fighting one another. For there shall be sedition among men, divisions, and invading one another, right? Home invasions, kick those, knocking those down, as we say down here in Texas. I mean, it's more so a Houston thing, but It says, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So they're not going to regard the kings and the princes when it comes to quelling civil unrest, man. The course of their action going to stand in power, because people, what we read the saying by Gerald Salente, says when people lose everything, right? He said what? When people lose everything, damn, where'd I put it? It's all good. But what Gerald Salente said, when people lose everything, when you have nothing else to lose because you lost everything, you lose it, for lack of better words. People are going to lose it, right? It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, because with these civil unrest that's going to happen, right, which are going to be sparked in the east and transition to the west on a higher level, that's going to cause and spark martial law. All right, it's going to cause curfews. See, and more laws and rules being passed to so-called quote unquote quell the unrest, but these civil unrests are going to be happening from it's going to be forced. That's where you have something called auto abkeo. Okay, it says, for because of their pride the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. It's going to be Jacob's trouble, man. It's going to be a time of trouble that's going to hit the world that the world has never seen, and people are going to be afraid. And it says, in that day the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. You see, people are going to be afraid. You ain't going to be able to just walk outside and go to the mall and, have this proud mindset at that time, man. People are going to be afraid because it's going to be all types of anarchy and hell breaking loose. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword. You ain't going to have no pity on your friendly neighbor next door that you used to shoot the shit with. And spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. There it is, the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Lack of bread is lack of food. And in order for you to get food, it has to be transported to you by way of trucks. In order for those trucks to move, you got to have gas. In order for you to have gas, it has to be imported. See how everything systematically is in tandem? Right? Let's go ahead and get ready to finish this off. It says, let's read that again. It says, Kraw fears a populist backlash in Europe as sanctions against Russia has sparked a cost of living crisis. This could force some EU governments to focus on affordability. What they can afford. So you're going to see more job losses, people getting laid off. Right? She said the probability of the U.S. making deals with Venezuela or Iran to offset the energy crunch is unlikely. Okay, because Iran is another key country, all right, that the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shah is going to use to foment, all right, World War III as well too. Iran, Israel, Gog and Magog, which is Russia, America, It says, one top EU diplomat admitted, our prosperity has been based on cheap energy coming from Russia. Cheap energy coming from Russia. Let's see how much. Okay, we have the last paragraph, and I'm going to end it off with a precept. It says, Europe's energy security is in dire straits. There's that word straits again. Remember we read the stress of nations. We read that earlier. Europe's energy security is in dire straits as the cold season nears. It says the problem with limited global capacity, right, and higher energy costs. So you have limited capacity, which is going to cause energy prices to increase, right? Supply and demand. When you got low supply and high demand of it, that's going to cause the price of that to increase, right? When you got high supply of something and low demand of something, of that same thing, for lack of better words, is going to cause prices to decrease, right? Europe's energy security is in dire straits as the cold season nears. The problem with limited global capacity And higher energy costs will only strain Europe to the core. So it's just going to create more of a problem. This winter, there are risks of power blackouts across the bloc as energy supplies from Russia dwindle. So you're going to have more rolling blackouts. And they used that example down here in Texas, man, when they had rolling blackouts taking place. Yeah, we need to save energy, right? We need to make sure that we're not scarcing, that's not the word I'm looking for, that we're rationing energy so that each individual household could have it. And I remember our house where I live at, man, we was out of energy for 3 days in the dead winter when that winter storm came through. 3 days we didn't have no electricity. It was cold as hell. And I was down here in Texas. It was cold as hell, man. You see? So they're already telling you about power blackouts. They practiced it in the winter last year. They clearly showed what they was getting ready to do. It was a ploy to see how people would respond to it. And people was going nuts, man. People was going crazy. Fast food restaurants had stores wrapped around them because you couldn't cook no food. You know? Grocery stores was packed out. No, there was the resources like water, canned foods and canned goods. You know, all these different things were scarce at that time. I remember we seen it. It says this winter there's a risk of power blackouts across the bloc as energy supplies from Russia dwindle, and the inability to rapidly increase imports from abroad. So with their cheap oil from Russia cut and their inability to receive imports from these different countries, because there's oil cuts, what's that going to do? That's going to put more strain on these different nations, specifically these European nations. The UK warned about this scenario days ago. You see that? And ultimately what this is going to do, it's going to lead to the 10 horns hating the whore and burning her flesh, burning her with fire, man, which is going to be them shooting missiles on this place, because they're going to eventually be like, man, you know what? Dealing with this whole, man, we done got burnt. Dealing with this whole in our policies, we done got burnt. Let's take her out. We all gonna team up and jump, man. Like Smokey said, man, let's jump them. That's exactly what they're gonna do. America gonna get jumped. See? So, you know, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying to the elect of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai B'Shem HaKodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that taught me this truth and that still out pushing this truth. And much peace, love, and salutation to the elect. Shalom.